This is not a book about learning in the abstract. It is a manual for rewiring the way you engage with the world, a system for transforming self-education from a sporadic hope into a practical superpower. Most of us grew up believing that learning was a passive act. Sit, listen, absorb, repeat. But the world has changed faster than the playbook. In a landscape where information is infinite but attention is fractured, the old methods collapse under their own weight. You may have felt it already, the creeping sense that more effort yields less progress, that each year your capacity is left idling while your ambitions drift further out of reach. You are not alone in this. The root cause is not laziness or a lack of drive, it is a lack of architecture. The default mode of endless consumption leaves you with an overflowing folder of bookmarks, but no tangible proof of growth. If you want a different outcome, you need a different operating system. This book is born from a conviction. Anyone can build a personal curriculum that delivers real, compounding returns. Inside, you will find a sequence, a set of 7 interlocking pillars that will guide you from directionless effort to targeted mastery. You will learn how to turn boredom into a compass, craft a 12-week sprint that ends with undeniable evidence of progress, engineer your environment for focus, and design rituals that make consistency automatic. You will practice at the edge of your ability, install memory systems that anchor knowledge for the long haul, and build feedback loops that turn error into acceleration. But most importantly, you will learn to think about how you think. You will become the architect, not just the worker, in your own development. This is not a theory to admire, but a blueprint to execute. You will ship work before you feel ready, track your metrics, and reflect in public. You will curate a portfolio that becomes a magnet for new opportunities, shifting your trajectory from passive participant to active builder. The process is mechanical, the results are profound. If you show up, do the work, and iterate, you will emerge with something rare, the ability to learn anything, on command, for life. If you are ready to escape autopilot and claim agency over your own growth, turn the page. The system awaits. Chapter 1, Boredom Antidote. You are not unmotivated, you are misaligned. There is a pervasive myth that boredom is a lack of things to do, a void that must be filled with entertainment, noise, or distraction. This is a lie. Boredom is not a void. It is a signal. Just like the check engine light on a car dashboard, it is a flashing red alert telling you that your current inputs do not match your required output. You are operating at a fraction of your capacity, and your brain knows it. Most people treat this signal like a nuisance. They cover the dashboard with tape, they scroll through infinite feeds, binge-watch series they do not enjoy, and hoard information they will never use. They numb the signal. But the signal persists. It manifests as a low-level anxiety, a feeling of being busy but bored, a sense that you are drifting through a gray fog of autopilot days. You are busy, yes. You are exhausted, certainly. But you are not moving. This state of drift is the enemy of agency. When you allow your attention to be fragmented by endless micro-distractions, you are not just wasting time, you are eroding your identity. Attention economics teaches us a brutal truth. You become what you pay attention to. If your attention is scattered, your identity becomes scattered. If your inputs are passive, your mind becomes passive. You cease to be a pilot and become a passenger in your own life, driven by algorithms designed to harvest your time for profit. The cost of this drift is not just a wasted afternoon, it is a wasted decade. The tragedy of the modern era is not the lack of information, it is the abundance of consumption without creation. You likely have a graveyard of highlights, a folder of saved articles, and a list of bookmarked videos that you have never revisited. This is the illusion of competence. You feel like you are learning because you are consuming, but without retrieval, without practice, and without production, you are merely a tourist in the world of knowledge. You are building nothing. The compound interest of stagnation. Let us play this tape forward. If you continue on this path of directionless effort, where every goal feels equal and no feedback loop exists to correct your course, you face a future defined by decay. Neuroplasticity is a double-edged sword. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on what you do, If you practice distraction, you become a master of distraction. If you practice passivity, you wire your brain for helplessness. Over time, this leads to a shrinking of your world. The skills you once held valuable will atrophy, outpaced by those who ship work weekly. The opportunities for interviews, collaborations, and growth will dry up because you have no proof of competence, only a resume of claims. The risk avoidance that keeps you scrolling today will masquerade as prudence tomorrow until someday becomes never. This is the boredom loop. You scroll to numb the stagnation, which lowers your confidence to attempt hard things, which lowers your standards, which leads to more boredom. But there is another path. It is the path of the builder. Imagine a different timeline. In this version of reality, you treat boredom as a call to arms. You replace drift with direction. You commit to a 12-week cycle of aggressive, structured self-education. In 6 weeks, you do not just know a subject, you have shipped a tangible artifact, a tutorial, a working prototype, a comprehensive analysis that proves your mastery. In 3 cycles, you have a coherent portfolio. In 1 year, you have career optionality that makes you fragile to nothing. This is not a fantasy. It is a mechanical certainty if you install the right system. When you trade passive consumption for active construction, you upgrade your identity. You shift from a consumer to a builder, from a dabbler to a professional. You stop waiting for permission and start shipping proof. The market does not pay for what you know, it pays for what you can demonstrate. Better proof leads to better referrals, wider roles, and repeatable wins. This is the compound interest of self-education. Your new operating system. This book is not a collection of study hacks. It is a complete overhaul of your operating system. By the time you finish your first cycle through this methodology, you will have achieved more than just intellectual growth. You will have a personal system that survives contact with reality. You will execute a 6-week sprint, resulting in a shipped artifact that stands as undeniable evidence of your skill. You will establish a rhythm of 10 to 15 deep focus blocks per week, protecting your time with the ferocity of a guard dog. You will track clear metrics that cut through the noise of opinion. You will walk away with a 1-page learning architecture, a daily launch ritual that automates your start, and a weekly review cadence that ensures you never drift off course for more than a few days. Most importantly, you will gain confidence under load. You will develop the ability to start on command regardless of your mood. You will build a tolerance for useful difficulty, understanding that the friction you feel is the sensation of learning happening in real time. You will learn to crave public feedback, not fear it, because you will understand that error is simply data required for the next iteration. The 7 pillars of mastery. To achieve this, we must dismantle the vague notion of learning and replace it with 7 concrete steps. These steps are the engine of this book, and they must be executed in order. First, you need direction. You cannot hit a target you have not painted. We will move beyond vague aspirations and define a clear 12-week outcome, identify 3 core skills, and pick a flagship artifact. This eliminates the paralysis of choice. When you know exactly what you are building, you stop wondering what to do next. Second, you need a motivation engine. Willpower is a battery that runs out. We need a generator that runs on structure. We will stop chasing the fleeting feeling of motivation and instead install it through identity statements and behavioral design. You will learn to automate your starts so that showing up becomes the path of least resistance. Third, you need deep work. Depth is the currency of the information age. We will prioritize depth over duration, carving out protected blocks where single tasking is the only law. You will learn to neutralize attention residue and enter a state of flow on command, turning quiet hours into shipped outputs. Fourth, you need practice design. Mindless repetition is not practice, it is manual labor. We will deconstruct complex skills into sub-skills and design drills that operate at the edge of your ability. You will learn to fail strategically, aiming for a specific failure rate that maximizes neural adaptation. Fifth, you need memory systems. You must stop treating your brain like a sieve. We will replace rereading with retrieval, converting your insights into active questions and spaced reviews. You will build a knowledge base that allows you to perform without notes, retrieving information instantly under pressure. Sixth, you need feedback loops. You cannot improve what you do not measure. We will establish lead and lag indicators, define mastery criteria, and treat errors as assets. You will learn to ship weekly micro demos to keep yourself honest, valuing output over opinion. Finally, you need metacognition. You must think about how you think. We will install a reflection cadence that converts experience into principles. You will learn to spot bottlenecks and retire tactics that no longer pay, evolving your system quarter by quarter. Sequence is strategy. You might wonder why this specific order matters. It matters because sequence reduces friction. We start with direction because it eliminates the dithering that kills momentum before you even begin. We follow with the motivation engine because the best plan in the world is useless if you cannot get yourself to start. We move to deep work because once you have started, you need to maximize the rate of gain. We place memory before ego because you must be able to retrieve what you know before you can effectively display it. We prioritize feedback over opinion because your feelings about your progress are often wrong, while the data is always right. And we end with reflection because it locks in the lesson and steers the next cycle. This structure is designed to protect you from the most common pitfalls of self-education. It prevents you from hoarding resources you will never use. It stops you from practicing what you are already good at while ignoring your weaknesses. It forces you to face the evidence of your work rather than hiding behind the feeling of being busy. The choice is yours. Ultimately, the difference between those who level up and those who stagnate comes down to attitude. There is a stark divide between the mindset of a winner and the mindset of a loser in the game of self-education. Losers wish for results. They dabble in new topics when they feel excited and abandon them when the work gets hard. They multitask, fragmenting their attention until their cognitive capacity is reduced to that of a goldfish. They delay shipping their work because they are terrified of judgment. They protect their ego at all costs, refusing to test their skills because they cannot bear the thought of failing. They repeat the same mistakes year after year, wondering why their career has stalled. Winners plan. They block their time and treat those blocks as sacred. They ship their work before they feel ready because they know that feedback is the only way to grow. They seek out the hard edges of reality, looking for the friction that signals growth. They own their results, good or bad. When they fail, they do not wallow in shame. They analyze the error log, adjust the system, and go again. They understand that mastery is not a gift bestowed upon the talented. It is a wage earned by the disciplined. The blueprint awaits. You are standing at the threshold of a new way of operating. The boredom you feel is not a character defect. It is potential energy waiting to be channeled. You have the desire. You have the capacity. What you lack is the architecture. The first step in escaping the autopilot trap is not to run faster, but to look at the map. You need to build a curriculum that is tailored to your specific goals, one that ignores the algorithm's whims and serves your long-term vision. You need to convert your vague interests into a concrete set of competencies and constraints. It is time to build the scaffolding that will support your ascent. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Learning Architecture. Most people treat their brain like a browser tab with infinite scrolling enabled. You wake up with a vague intention to get better at coding or writing or data analysis. You open a video, then you click a related link, then you buy a course on sale, then you read a forum thread about which software is best. 3 hours later, you are exhausted, your brain is full of noise, and you have built absolutely nothing. You feel productive because you were busy, but you were just drowning in data. You are building a skyscraper on quicksand. Without a structural foundation, Every new piece of information you pile on top just makes you sink faster. You do not need more content. You do not need another list of top 10 tools. You need a container for your ambition. You need a blueprint that protects you from the chaos of the algorithm. This is where we leave the amateur approach behind. We are going to build a learning architecture. This is not a rigid syllabus handed down by a professor who hasn't worked in the field for a decade. It is a living, breathing, strategic document that you own. It converts your vague curiosity into a stack of lethal competencies. By the end of this chapter, you will have a one-page plan that tells you exactly what to do at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, eliminating the decision fatigue that usually kills your momentum before you even start. The high cost of entropy. The primary reason you fail to learn new skills is not a lack of intelligence. It is an energy leak. Every time you sit down to work and have to ask yourself, what should I do today? You are burning a finite fuel source. Decision-making is expensive. If you spend your best cognitive energy deciding what to study, you have nothing left to actually study it. A proper architecture acts as cognitive scaffolding. It holds the structure of your learning journey in place so your mind is free to grapple with the material. When you have a plan, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop wondering if you should switch topics. You simply execute the block on your calendar. This clarity stops the leaks. It prevents the common tragedy of overcommitment, where you try to learn everything and end up learning nothing. Furthermore, architecture makes progress visible. In the fog of self-education, it is easy to feel like you are walking on a treadmill, sweating hard but staying in the same place. A structured plan provides milestones. It gives you benchmarks that tell you objectively whether you are good enough yet. It shifts your focus from putting in hours to producing artifacts. You stop measuring success by how long you stared at a screen and start measuring it by what you shipped. Designing your constraints. The secret to this architecture is not what you add, but what you subtract. The amateur thinks freedom is the goal. The professional knows that freedom is the enemy of mastery. To learn effectively, you must design constraints. Your architecture will live on a single page. If it takes more than one page, it is too complex and you will abandon it. This document anchors your next 12 weeks. Why 12 weeks? Because a year is too long to maintain urgency, and a week is too short to achieve significance. 12 weeks is the sweet spot. It is a horizon you can see, but a timeline that demands daily action. On this page, you will define a single outcome statement. This is not a wish. It is a contract. It describes exactly what you will be able to do at the end of the cycle. Below that, you will list exactly 3 core skills, no more, no less, that are required to achieve that outcome. And for each skill, you will limit yourself to a maximum of 2 resources. This constraint is painful. You will want to save 5 books and 10 YouTube channels just in case. You must resist this. Choice overload is the silent killer of starts. When you have 10 resources, you spend your time evaluating them. When you have 2, you spend your time consuming them. By artificially limiting your inputs, you force yourself to go deep rather than wide. You are designing a funnel that forces focus. The pedigree trap and resource hoarding. Before we draft the plan, we must burn down a few myths that are likely cluttering your mental space. The most pervasive is the belief that you need formal permission to learn. You might tell yourself you need a certification, a degree, or a structured class to be taken seriously. This is a lie, born of insecurity. In the modern economy, proof beats pedigree every time. A portfolio of real work outweighs a certificate of attendance. Your architecture is designed to build that proof. The second myth is the idea that planning is a one-time event you do on New Year's Eve. Reality is messier. Plans are living systems. Your architecture is a map, not a railroad track. You will deviate. You will find that one resource is useless and swap it for another. That is not failure, that is calibration. But you cannot calibrate if you do not have a baseline. The third and most dangerous myth is the hoarder's fallacy. The belief that having access to information is the same as possessing knowledge. You likely have a read later list that is miles long. You treat it like a trophy case. It is actually a graveyard. Hoarding resources gives you a dopamine hit that mimics the feeling of learning, but it produces zero competence. Your architecture will force you to stop collecting and start utilizing. If a resource is not on your one-page plan, it does not exist. Constructing the one-page curriculum. Now we build. Take a blank sheet of paper or open a blank document. At the top, write your 12-week outcome. This must be a binary success metric. Do not write Learn Python. That is vague. Write Ship a web scraper that aggregates real estate prices and exports them to a CSV. You either did it or you didn't. There is no place to hide. Next, identify your flagship artifact. This is the physical proof of your outcome. It is the thing you will show to a potential employer or client. It is the code on GitHub, the article on Medium, or the video case study. If you cannot point to it, you did not learn it. Set a public demo date for this artifact. Put it on the calendar. The fear of public humiliation is a potent fuel. Use it. Break this outcome down into 3 core skills. If your outcome is the web scraper, your skills might be Python basics, library requests, and data parsing. For each skill, write a set of I can criteria. I can write a loop. I can handle an error. I can export a file. These are your competencies. Mastery is not a feeling, it is a stack of competencies. Now, apply the resource constraint. Pick the 2 best resources for each skill. One might be a documentation site, the other might be a specific tutorial series. That is it. If you get stuck, you can look for an answer, but you cannot add a new primary resource until you discard an old one. Finally, schedule your blocks. You need to treat your study time with the same respect you treat a doctor's appointment. You're going to schedule 2 50-minute deep work sessions per day. Not 4 hours, not all day Saturday. 2 focused blocks. Consistency beats intensity. Add a buffer block on Friday for the inevitable spillover, and a review block on Sunday to assess the damage and adjust the map. The scoreboard of reality. A plan without metrics is just a hallucination. You need a scoreboard to tell you if you are winning or losing. You will track 2 types of numbers, lead indicators and lag indicators. Your lag indicator is the artifact. It is the final result. But you cannot manage a result. You can only manage the behavior that leads to it. That is where lead indicators come in. Your lead indicators are your deep work sessions and your drills. Did you hit your 10 blocks this week? Yes or no? Did you complete your error logs? Yes or no? You must also create an error log template. This is where you record every time you get stuck, every bug you can't fix, and every concept that confuses you. Most people ignore errors or get frustrated by them. You will capture them. The error log is the most high-value document you will produce because it points specifically to the gaps in your mental model. Inoculating against paralysis. There are traps waiting for you as you build this. The first is overplanning paralysis. You can spend weeks tweaking your font choice on the plan instead of doing the work. To fix this, time box the planning phase. Give yourself exactly 90 minutes to draft the entire architecture. It will not be perfect. It does not need to be. It just needs to be clear enough to start. The second trap is the stop doing list. You are already busy. You cannot add 10 hours of work to a full schedule without removing something. You must explicitly decide what you will sacrifice for the next 12 weeks. Will you give up Netflix? Will you stop scrolling social media before bed? Will you decline social invites on Thursday nights? Write these down. You are buying your future with the currency of your present comfort. The third trap is invisible progress. In the middle of the cycle, you will feel like you are failing. This is normal. To combat this, ensure you have micro-deliverables. Break your flagship artifact into weekly chunks. Week 1, set up the environment. Week 2, write the first script. Week 3, debug the connection. These small wins create the momentum required to push through the valley of despair. The architect's advantage. When you finish this process, you will have something rare. You will have a good outcome, which is a clear 12-week plan with 20 scheduled blocks on your calendar. If you push harder, you will achieve an excellent outcome where you are shipping weekly deliverables and have a demo date set in stone. And if you execute with relentless precision, you will hit the best outcome. A shipped flagship artifact, a documented stack of competencies and inbound opportunities from people who have seen your work. But even if you only achieve the good outcome, you are miles ahead of the pack. You have stopped the energy leaks. You have silenced the noise of the algorithm. You have turned your vague desires into a concrete roadmap. You know what to do, you know when to do it, and you know what done looks like. However, a map is not the territory. You can have the most perfect architecture in the world, a beautiful one-page plan pinned to your wall, and a calendar full of protected blocks. But when the alarm goes off at 6 a.m., or when you sit down in the chair after a long day at work, something strange happens. The logic of the plan meets the chaos of your biology. You know exactly what to do, but you find yourself staring at the wall, unable to move. There is a ghost in the machine. It is the invisible force that makes you procrastinate even when the path is clear. It is the friction that defies logic. To defeat it, we cannot rely on willpower. We need something stronger. We need to build an engine that runs on something other than your mood. Chapter 3: Motivation Engine. You are waiting for a feeling that is not coming. It is the most common tragedy in the world of self-improvement. You wake up, or you finish your shift at work, and you look at the plan you created in the previous chapter. You know it is good. You know the logic is sound. You know exactly what you need to do to change your life. But you do not feel like doing it. You feel tired. You feel anxious. You feel a heavy, gray resistance settling in your chest. So you tell yourself a lie. You say, "I'll do it when I'm in the right headspace." You wait for the spark. You wait for the clouds to part and a beam of pure, unadulterated drive to strike you. This is why you fail. You are treating motivation like a weather event, something that happens to you, something you must wait for. But professionals do not wait for the weather. They build a roof. If you want to master self-education, you must stop chasing motivation and start installing it. We are going to build a motivation engine. This is not a metaphor for thinking positive thoughts. It is a mechanical, psychological structure that renders your mood irrelevant. By the time you finish this chapter, you will have a system that pushes you into action even on your worst days, bypassing the part of your brain that wants to negotiate. The bankruptcy of willpower. Most people operate on a brute force model of action. They believe that if they just grit their teeth hard enough, they can force themselves to work. This is the discipline trap. Willpower is a battery, and it drains with every decision you make throughout the day. By the time you get to your learning block at 7 p.m., the battery is dead. Relying on willpower to start a difficult task is like trying to push a car up a hill every single day. You might do it once. You might do it twice, but eventually, gravity wins. We need to stop pushing the car and start the engine. The engine runs on autonomy, competence, and relatedness, the three pillars of self-determination theory. But we are going to translate that theory into hard engineering. We are going to replace the question, "Do I feel like it?" with a set of automated behaviors that fire before your brain has a chance to object. The goal here is not intensity. Intensity is cheap. Anyone can pull an all-nighter once a year. The goal is consistency. Small, daily starts outrun rare heroics every time. If you show up for 20 minutes every day for a year, you will crush the person who studies for 10 hours once a month. To achieve this, we must remove the decision fatigue that kills your momentum. We must make starting the path of least resistance. The identity override. The first component of your engine is not a habit, it is a sentence. It is a fundamental shift in how you speak to yourself. When you rely on fleeting motivation, you view your learning as something you are trying to do. You are a student or an aspirant. This is weak language. It leaves the door open for failure. If you are trying to learn to code, quitting is an option. If you are a programmer, coding is just what you do. You need to craft an identity statement. This is a claim of ownership. It aligns your actions with your self-image. When your behavior matches your identity, you do not need willpower. You simply act in accordance with who you are. Write this down now. It must be in the present tense. It must be behavior-focused. It should not be, I want to be a writer. It should be, I am a writer who ships 500 words daily. It should not be, I hope to learn Spanish. It should be, I am a speaker who practices conversation every morning. This sounds simple, but it is the software that runs the engine. When you face resistance, you do not argue with the task, you argue with the identity. If you skip the work, you are not just missing a session, you are violating your own definition of self. That cognitive dissonance is painful, and that pain is useful. It drives you back to the work. You are no longer borrowing a goal from a guru or a boss. You own it. This is autonomy, and autonomy is the highest grade of fuel available. The 2-minute ignition sequence. Now that we have the software, we need the hardware. We need a physical trigger that initiates the work sequence. The biggest mistake you make is looking at your hour-long study block and feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task. Your brain sees learn quantum physics and hits the panic button. It floods you with cortisol. You freeze. We are going to hack this response using a concept called the minimum effective dose. You are not going to commit to an hour of deep work. You're going to commit to a 2-minute launch ritual. Design a sequence of physical actions that takes less than 120 seconds. It might look like this. Put on noise-canceling headphones. Open your code editor. Set a timer for 50 minutes. That is it. Your goal is not to finish the chapter. Your goal is to put the headphones on. This works because of a principle in behavioral psychology. Action precedes motivation. You do not feel good and then act. You act and then feel good. By shrinking the hurdle to something laughably small, you bypass the amygdala's fear response. You trick your brain into starting. And once you have started, once the headphones are on and the timer is ticking, the law of inertia takes over. It is much harder to stop than it is to keep going. You must ritualize this. Do it in the same place, at the same time, with the same tools, every single time. You are wiring a neural association. Eventually, the sensation of the headphones on your ears will trigger a Pavlovian focus response. You won't have to decide to focus. Your body will do it for you. Inoculating against the crash. Even with a strong identity and a launch ritual, there will be days when the system buckles. You will be exhausted. You will be anxious. You will be interrupted. The amateur lets these moments derail the entire train. The professional prepares for them. We are going to install if-then plans. These are implementation intentions designed to handle predictable obstacles. You know you will be tired. You know you will be stressed. Instead of hoping these things don't happen, we will script our reaction to them. This removes the need to make a decision when you are at your weakest. Write down your 3 biggest blockers. Now write a script for each. If I am exhausted and cannot focus, then I will do a 10-minute starter block just to keep the streak alive. If I get interrupted by a phone call, then I will pause the timer, write down exactly where I was, and restart immediately after hanging up. If I feel anxious and overwhelmed, then I will take one 60-second breath and begin anyway. These scripts are safety valves. They prevent a bad moment from becoming a bad week. They allow you to negotiate with your limitations without surrendering to them. You are giving yourself permission to lower the intensity, but you are never giving yourself permission to stop. The standard is not perfection. The standard is showing up. The binary scoreboard. To keep this engine running, you need to see it working. But you must be careful what you measure. In the early stages, do not measure quality. Do not measure pages read. Do not measure lines of code written. These are vanity metrics that can discourage you if they are low. Measure the start. Create a binary scoreboard. Did you execute the launch ritual? Yes or no? Did you show up? Yes or no? That is the only question that matters. Mark it on a calendar. Create a visual chain of yes. There is a rule you must adopt. Never miss twice. You are human. You will miss a day. The amateur misses a day and thinks, I've ruined it. I'll start again next Monday. This is the shame spiral. It is a lie your ego tells you to get out of doing the work. The professional misses a day and says, that was a data point. Then they immediately restart the next day. One miss is an accident. 2 misses is the beginning of a new habit. You must protect the streak with your life, but if it breaks, you start a new one instantly. This approach shifts your dopamine reward system. You stop getting high on the fantasy of the result and start getting high on the act of showing up. You celebrate the start, not the finish. When you sit down and turn on that timer, you have already won. Everything that happens after that is just gravy. The myth of the big reward. You might be tempted to bribe yourself. You might think, if I study for a week, I'll buy myself something nice. This is a mistake. External rewards for internal work actually decrease motivation over time. It signals to your brain that the learning is a chore that must be compensated. The reward must be intrinsic. It must be the feeling of competence. It must be the satisfaction of the yes on your scoreboard. However, tiny, immediate wins work wonders. The satisfaction of checking a box. The feeling of closing a tab after reading it. The quiet pride of knowing you are the type of person who does what they say they will do. These micro-rewards build a feedback loop that sustains the engine indefinitely. The engine is running. Now what? You have now constructed a formidable system. You have an identity statement that pulls you forward. You have a launch ritual that pushes you over the threshold of resistance. You have if-then plans that catch you when you fall. You have a motivation engine that does not rely on the weather. You can get into the chair, you can turn on the timer, you can start. But here is the dangerous truth that no one tells you. Starting is only the first battle. Once the engine is running and you are moving, you enter a new territory. You are now face to face with the work itself, and the modern world has designed 1,000 invisible weapons to destroy your focus the moment you try to use it. You might be sitting there, timer running, ready to learn, but your mind is still echoing with the noise of the day. You are physically present, but cognitively absent. There is a residue left over from every email you checked and every notification you glanced at. This residue clogs the gears of your mind, making deep thought impossible. You have the motivation to work, but you lack the clarity to perform. To survive the next phase, we must learn how to clean the slate. We must learn the art of going deep in a world that is obsessed with the shallows. Chapter 4, Deep Work. You are sitting in your chair. The motivation engine we built in the last chapter has done its job. You have your headphones on. The timer is set. You have successfully tricked your amygdala into letting you start. You are ready to work. But then, a thought intrudes. It is a fragment of a conversation you had 2 hours ago. Then, a sudden urge to check if that email you sent was replied to. Then you remember you need to buy laundry detergent. Your body is in the chair, but your mind is scattered across a dozen different timelines and obligations. You are physically present, but cognitively, you are a ghost. You try to force your attention onto the task at hand, but it feels like trying to hold water in your hands. It keeps slipping through your fingers. You spend the first 20 minutes of your session fighting this mental drift, and by the time you actually lock in, the timer goes off. You feel exhausted, yet you have very little to show for it. You have fallen victim to the invisible tax that bankrupts most self-learners before they ever make a profit. This tax is called attention residue. Every time you switch tasks, every time you glance at a notification, check a Slack message, or even let your mind wander to an unresolved problem, a part of your attention remains stuck on that previous task. It does not switch over instantly. You are trying to learn complex material with only a fraction of your cognitive bandwidth available. The rest is still processing the past. To level up your life, we must stop paying this tax. We must declare a new standard for how we spend our time. It is not about how many hours you sit in the chair, it is about the purity of those hours. We are going to replace the shallow, distracted, busy work that defines modern life with a rare and powerful commodity. We are going to cultivate deep work. The cognitive tax you didn't know you were paying. The modern world is designed to fragment your attention. It rewards the fast twitch, the quick reply, the constant scan. But deep learning, the kind that rewires your brain and builds valuable skills, requires the opposite. It requires long, unbroken stretches of concentration where you hold a complex concept in your mind and manipulate it until it makes sense. When you multitask, you are not doing two things at once. You are rapidly switching between them, and every switch incurs a penalty. It takes your brain time to reload the context of the first task. If you are coding and you stop to answer a text and then go back to the code, you have to rebuild the mental model of the program from scratch. You have lost your place. You have lost your depth. This is why multitasking is efficient is the most dangerous myth in the productivity canon. It is a lie that makes you feel busy while ensuring you remain incompetent. Shallow work is attractive because it is easy. It demands very little cognitive load to reply to an email or organize a file folder. But shallow work does not move the needle. It does not build the artifacts that change your career. Deep work is different. It is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It is a state of peak concentration that pushes your cognitive capabilities to their limit. This is where the magic happens. This is where neuroplasticity kicks into high gear. When you are in this state, you learn faster, you retain more, and you produce work that is hard to replicate. The architecture of a deep block. We are not going to aim for 8 hours of this. That is a fantasy. True deep work is exhausting. It burns glucose and neurotransmitters at a rapid rate. Even the best in the world, elite musicians, grandmaster chess players, prolific authors, can rarely sustain more than 4 hours of true depth a day. For you, the target is much more modest, yet infinitely more effective. We are aiming for 2 protected blocks per day. Just 2. But we are going to guard these blocks like they are revenue, because they are. Each block will be 50 minutes long. This is enough time to go deep, but short enough to sustain intensity without burning out. But you cannot just set a timer and hope for the best. You need a protocol. You need to design the block so that depth is inevitable. The first step happens before the timer starts. It is the brain dump. Remember that attention residue we talked about? The best way to clear it is to close the open loops in your head. Take 90 seconds before you start your work to write down everything that is nagging you. The laundry, the email, the weird noise the car is making. Get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. By writing it down, you are telling your brain, it is safe to forget this for now. I have captured it. You are flushing the RAM of your mind so you can load the program you actually want to run. Once the loops are closed, you must define the objective. Most people sit down with a vague intention like, study Python. This is a disaster. It is too broad. It gives your brain too much room to hide. You need a single objective for the block, and it must be defined by a verb and a noun. Draft the outline for the article. Refactor the user login module. Memorize the 20 key terms of the anatomy chapter. Verb plus noun. Clarity creates speed. When you know exactly what done looks like for the next 50 minutes, you strip away the ambiguity that leads to procrastination. You are not working, you are executing a specific mission. The sanctuary of monotasking. Now the timer starts. For the next 50 minutes, you exist in a universe with only one object. You are monotasking. This means one screen, one window, one tab. If you are writing, you do not have the research tab open next to the document. You do not have your email open in the background. You are in full screen mode. This feels uncomfortable at first. We are addicted to the hum of information. Silence feels like isolation. But you must embrace this friction. That urge to click away, to check something, to seek a hit of novelty. That is the sensation of your brain withdrawing from its addiction to distraction. If you need a tool to help you, use a physical focus token. This could be your headphones, a specific hat, or even a do not disturb sign you place on your desk. This serves 2 purposes. First, it signals to the people around you that you are in a deep block and should not be interrupted unless the building is on fire. Second, and more importantly, it signals to you that you are in a different mode of being. You are not in browse mode, you are in build mode. If you get stuck, you do not click away. You sit with the problem. You stare at the blinking cursor. You wrestle with the error message. This is the crucible. The temptation to alleviate the tension of being stuck by checking social media is immense, but you must resist it. The breakthrough is usually hiding right behind the boredom. If you click away, you reset the clock on your depth. If you stay, you break through to the next level of understanding. The art of the clean exit. The way you end a deep work block is just as important as how you start it. When the timer goes off, do not just slam your laptop shut and walk away. That leaves cognitive residue that will haunt you for the rest of the day, and worse, it makes it harder to start tomorrow. You need a shutdown ritual. Spend the last 2 minutes of your block logging your progress. We will use a simple 3-line log. Line 1. What did you get done? Be specific. Wrote 500 words of the introduction. Line 2. What was the snag? Got stuck on the transition to the second argument. Line 3. What is the very first step for the next block? Write the opening sentence of the second paragraph. This log is a gift to your future self. When you sit down for your next block, you won't have to waste energy wondering where you left off. You will look at the log, see the next step, and immediately re-enter the flow. You are building a bridge over the gap of time, ensuring that your momentum carries over from one session to the next. Troubleshooting the restless mind. There will be days when this feels impossible. You will sit down, do the brain dump, set the objective, and your mind will still act like a hyperactive squirrel. You will feel a physical agitation, a need to move, to check, to do anything but the work. When this happens, do not fight it with anger. That only adds noise. Instead, use the boredom sit. If you cannot work, you are not allowed to do anything else. You can sit and stare at the wall. You can close your eyes, but you cannot check your phone. You cannot open a new tab. You cannot get up to clean the kitchen. You are giving your brain a binary choice: do the deep work or be incredibly bored. Given that choice, your brain will eventually choose the work. It craves stimulation, and if the only stimulation available is the difficult task in front of you, it will eventually settle into it. You might also face the issue of interruptions. The world does not respect your deep work. It wants your attention now. You must train the people around you. If you are constantly available, you are teaching people that your time is cheap. By batching your communication, checking email and messages only in specific windows before or after your deep blocks, you set a boundary. You are unavailable for these 50 minutes so that you can be fully available and valuable for the rest of the day. The compound effect of depth. If you execute this protocol, 2 50-minute blocks of ruthless single-tasking focus per day, you will produce more in a week than most people produce in a month. You will look back at your week and see artifacts. You will see code that runs. You will see chapters written. You will see complex problems solved. This is the difference between being busy and being effective. Shallow work keeps you employed. Deep work gets you promoted. Shallow work maintains the status quo. Deep work changes the trajectory of your life. You will start to crave these blocks. They will become the anchor of your day, the time when you feel most competent and most alive. You will stop feeling the anxiety of not doing enough because you will have the concrete proof of your labor right in front of you. But there is a catch. You can have the best architecture in the world. You can have a motivation engine that fires every morning. You can have deep work blocks that are protected by iron walls. You can sit there for 50 minutes, undistracted, focused, and ready. But what are you actually doing in those 50 minutes? You can spend 50 minutes deeply focused on reading a book, nodding your head, and feeling like you understand it. You can spend 50 minutes deeply focused on copying code from a tutorial. You can spend 50 minutes deeply focused on doing something that feels like work, but is actually just a sophisticated form of wasting time. Focus is a multiplier, but if you multiply 0, you still get 0. If your method of practice is flawed, deep work will only make you an expert at being mediocre. You need to know how to convert that focus into actual skill. You need to know how to practice in a way that hurts, because if it doesn't hurt, it isn't working. We need to talk about the difference between doing it again and doing it better. We need to enter the laboratory of pain. Chapter 5, Practice Design. You are working hard. You are putting in the hours. You are showing up, sitting in the chair, and doing the thing. But if you are honest with yourself, you have to admit a painful truth. You are not getting much better. You have hit the plateau. It is the place where ambitious people go to die a slow, frustrating death. You type just as fast as you did last year. Your code is just as clean or messy as it was 6 months ago. Your writing has the same voice, the same flaws, and the same impact it had when you started. You are busy, but you are stagnant. The problem is not your effort. The problem is your definition of practice. Most people think practice is simply doing the thing over and over again. They think that if they just write enough essays, they will become Hemingway. They think that if they just build enough websites, they will become a senior engineer. This is the 10,000-hour rule, misunderstood. If you spend 10,000 hours practicing bad habits, you do not become an expert. You become an expert at being bad. We need to shatter the illusion that time equals mastery. Time only equals permanence. Practice makes permanent. If you want mastery, you need something else entirely. You need to stop playing and start designing. You need to move from mindless repetition to deliberate practice. The autopilot trap. The human brain is an efficiency machine. Its primary goal is to automate everything it can to save energy. When you first learned to drive a car, it was terrifying. You were hyper-aware of the pedals, the mirrors, the other cars, the turn signal. Your brain was lit up like a Christmas tree. You were learning. But now, you can drive home from work and not remember a single turn. You are on autopilot. Your brain has offloaded the skill to a lower-level circuit. This is great for commuting, but it is fatal for learning. Once a skill becomes comfortable, learning stops. To level up, you must declare war on comfort. You must deliberately break the automation. You need to design practice sessions that force your brain to wake up, pay attention, and rewire itself. This requires a shift in philosophy. You are not sitting down to do some work. You are entering a laboratory where you are the scientist and your skills are the subject. You are going to dissect your abilities, find the weak points, and apply pressure until they break and rebuild stronger. Deconstruct and diagnose. You cannot practice a complex skill. You cannot practice graphic design. That is too big. It is like trying to eat a boulder. You have to break it down into rocks, then pebbles, then sand. The first step of practice design is decomposition. Take the skill you want to master and smash it against the floor. Look at the pieces. If you are learning to write, the pieces might be headlines, transitions, metaphors, brevity, and structure. If you're learning a language, the pieces are vocabulary, conjugation, pronunciation, and listening comprehension. Now, look at those pieces. They are not all equal. There is one piece in that pile that is holding you back. We call this the rate limiter. It is the bottleneck. It is the sub-skill that you are worst at. And because you are bad at it, it caps your performance in everything else. Most people avoid their rate limiter because it makes them feel incompetent. If you are good at vocabulary but bad at grammar, you will keep studying flashcards because it feels good to get the answers right. You are polishing the shiny parts of the engine while the transmission is broken. You must do the opposite. You must identify the sub-skill that makes you feel the most stupid, and you must attack it with everything you have. You are going to ignore the things you are good at for a while. You're going to take that one weak sub-skill and build a drill around it. The sweet spot of struggle. Now we design the drill. A drill is not a project. A project is a long, messy endeavor with 1,000 variables. A drill is a short, sharp, controlled environment designed to isolate a single variable. If your rate limiter in writing is brevity, your drill is not write an article. Your drill is take a 1,000-word piece and cut it to 300 words without losing the meaning. If your rate limiter in coding is debugging, your drill is not build an app. It is download a broken code repository and fix 5 bugs in 20 minutes. But here is the crucial variable, difficulty. If you succeed at your drill 100% of the time, you are wasting your time. You are just proving what you already know. If you succeed 0% of the time, you are just learning helplessness. You need to find the Goldilocks zone of friction. The target is a success rate of 60% to 80%. You want to be getting it right more than half the time, but you want to be failing often enough that you have to stop and think. That moment of failure, that split second where you get the red error message, or the sentence sounds clunky, or you miss the note, is the most valuable second of your day. That is the signal to your brain that the current neural pathway is insufficient. That is the trigger for neuroplasticity. If you're getting everything right, make the drill harder. Add a time constraint. Remove a tool. Force yourself to do it without looking at the documentation. If you're failing everything, make it easier. Remove the time limit. Allow yourself one cheat sheet. You must manually adjust the difficulty dial until you're sweating. The remix strategy. There is a trap in drilling called blocked practice. This is where you do the same thing over and over again. Cla, BBB, CC. It feels good. You get into a rhythm. You see immediate improvement during the session. But this is a mirage. Blocked practice relies on short-term memory. You are not learning the skill. You're just holding the pattern in your RAM. The moment you step away, it fades. To build durable skills, you must use interleaving. You must mix it up. ABC, CAB. Instead of spending 20 minutes solely on vocabulary, spend 5 minutes on vocabulary, 5 on grammar, 5 on listening, and then back to vocabulary. This feels terrible. You never get into a groove. You constantly feel like you are forgetting things. You have to work hard to reload the context every time you switch. But that struggle to reload is exactly why it works. It forces your brain to retrieve the information from long-term storage rather than relying on the echo of the last minute. It simulates the real world. The real world does not throw problems at you in neat, sorted blocks. It throws them at you randomly. Your practice must look like the game you are trying to win. The scoreboard of truth. Finally, you cannot improve what you do not measure. Vague feelings of, I think I'm getting better, are worthless. You need cold, hard data. You need a scoreboard for your drills. You need to track 3 things: attempts, accuracy, and speed. How many times did you try? What percentage did you get right? How long did it take? Write these numbers down. Keep a log. This transforms your practice from a subjective experience into an objective game. When you see your speed go from 10 minutes to 7 minutes over the course of a week, you get a hit of motivation that no inspirational quote can provide. You see the line moving up. You have proof. This also protects you from the ego. Your ego wants to tell you that you are great. The scoreboard tells you the truth. If your accuracy is 95%, the scoreboard is screaming at you to increase the difficulty. If your accuracy is 40%, it is telling you to slow down. The numbers are your coach. The feedback loop. This process, deconstruct, drill, interleave, measure, creates a tight feedback loop. In a normal work environment, you might write a report and not get feedback on it for a week. That is a slow loop. By the time you get the feedback, you have forgotten why you made the choices you made. In a design practice session, the loop is immediate. You write the code, you run the test, it fails, you know instantly. You correct it, you run it again, it passes. You have closed the loop in seconds. This compression of feedback is the secret to speed. You can fit a year's worth of trial and error into a month if your loops are tight enough. You are not waiting for permission to learn. You are forcing the system to tell you where you are wrong so you can fix it immediately. The warning. When you start practicing this way, you will feel a strong urge to stop. Your brain will rebel. It hates the friction. It hates the feeling of being wrong 30% of the time. It will beg you to go back to the easy work, to just reading another article or watching another tutorial. You must recognize this resistance for what it is, the sensation of growth. It is the burn in the muscle. If you do not feel it, you are not growing. You are just maintaining. You have the architecture. You have the motivation. You have the deep work blocks. And now you have the design for what to do inside those blocks. You are building a machine that turns time into skill with ruthless efficiency. But there is a leak in the system. You can do everything right. You can design the perfect drill. You can execute it with deep focus. You can hit the 80% success rate. You can walk away from the session feeling like a genius. And then, 3 days later, you reach for that piece of knowledge, and it is gone. It is the most terrifying feeling in self-education. You know you learned it. You remember learning it, but you cannot retrieve it. It is like grasping at smoke. You are pouring water into a bucket full of holes. If we do not plug those holes, all of this effort is for nothing. You will be a person who has learned 1,000 things but knows nothing. We need to talk about the silent thief that steals your hard work while you sleep. We need to talk about how to lock the door. Chapter 6, Memory Systems. You are a hoarder. You might not have stacks of old newspapers blocking your hallway, but if we looked inside your digital life, we would find the equivalent. You have gigabytes of PDFs you have never opened. You have notebooks filled with scribbles you haven't looked at since the day you wrote them. You have a Kindle library full of highlights that are currently gathering digital dust. You tell yourself that this collection is valuable. You tell yourself that because you have captured the information, you possess the knowledge. This is the single biggest lie in the world of learning. Possession is not knowledge. Access is not understanding. If you cannot produce the information instantly without looking at your notes, while under the pressure of a conversation or a deadline, you do not know it. You have merely rented it for a few minutes. We spend our lives pouring information into a bucket that is full of holes. We read a book, feel a surge of insight, and then 2 weeks later, we struggle to recall a single actionable concept. We are building sandcastles at low tide, watching our hard work wash away with the passage of time. It is exhausting, and it is demoralizing. But memory is not a fixed trait. It is not a genetic lottery where some people are gifted with a steel trap and others are cursed with a sieve. Memory is a system. It is a design choice. You can choose to stop the leaking. You can choose to build a mind that retains what it touches. In this chapter, we are going to stop the passive act of rereading and start the aggressive act of retrieval. We are going to build a personal knowledge engine. The illusion of competence. The enemy of memory is familiarity. When you read a textbook or review your notes, you read a sentence and your brain nods along. Yes, it says, I recognize this. I know this. This feeling of recognition is a sedative. It lulls you into a false sense of security. You mistake the ability to recognize the material for the ability to recall it. This is why rereading is the least effective study method in existence, yet it is the one everyone uses. It feels good. It is easy. It requires zero cognitive strain. But learning does not happen when things are easy. Learning happens when you struggle. To lock information into your long-term memory, you must stop putting information in and start pulling it out. This is called retrieval practice. Every time you force your brain to retrieve a memory, you are not just accessing a file, you are rewriting it. You are strengthening the neural pathway that leads to that information. Think of your memory like a path through a dense forest. The first time you walk it, the grass is high and the path is faint. If you don't walk it again, the grass grows back and the path disappears. But if you walk it repeatedly, the dirt becomes packed. The path becomes a road. Eventually, it becomes a highway. Rereading is like looking at a map of the forest. Retrieval is walking the path. Turning notes into weapons. The first step in building your system is to change how you take notes. Most people transcribe. They act as a human photocopier, moving words from a source to a notebook without passing through their brain. This is useless. From this moment on, you are done taking notes. You are now creating atomic questions. When you encounter a piece of information you want to keep, a concept, a syntax rule, a strategic principle, do not write it down as a statement. Convert it into a question. If you are learning about photography and you read that a low aperture creates a blurry background, do not write low aperture equals blurry background. Instead, write What is the effect of a low aperture on depth of field? The answer is the fact you want to remember. The question is the key that unlocks it. By converting your notes into QA pairs, you are creating a database of potential retrieval events. You are building a simulator for your future self. These questions must be atomic. They must contain one single idea with one unambiguous answer. If your question is, how does a camera work? You have failed. That is too big. You will never be able to answer it precisely, so your brain will skip it. Break it down. What is the function of the shutter? What does ISO measure? What is the rule of thirds? The cadence of forgetting. Now you have a pile of questions. If you review them all every day, you will burn out. If you review them once and never again, you will forget. You need to hack the forgetting curve. The human brain follows a predictable pattern of decay. You forget most of what you learn within 24 hours. But if you interrupt that forgetting with a retrieval event, you reset the clock. And here is the magic. Each time you successfully retrieve a memory, the decay curve flattens. You forget slower. This means you can space out your reviews. This is the principle of spaced repetition. You do not need to review everything every day. You only need to review information right before you are about to forget it. We will use a simple schedule, 137-2160. You review a new question one day after you create it. If you get it right, you push it out 3 days. If you get it right again, 7 days. Then 3 weeks. Then 2 months. This spacing is crucial because it creates desirable difficulty. If you review something 5 minutes after learning it, it is too easy. You are relying on short-term memory. But if you wait 3 days, you have to struggle a bit to find the answer. You have to dig. That digging is the signal to your brain that this information is vital for survival. The struggle is the point. The pretest protocol. We can take this a step further. You can use retrieval to learn things you haven't even studied yet. This sounds impossible, but it is supported by the generation effect. Before you sit down for a deep work block to read a new chapter or watch a tutorial, take 90 seconds to test yourself on the subject. Ask yourself, what do I think this is about? How would I solve this problem right now before I know the answer? You will likely get it wrong. That is fine. By attempting to generate an answer, you are priming your brain. You are opening a knowledge gap. When you finally read the material and find the correct answer, your brain will latch onto it with far more intensity because it is solving a mystery you just created. You are not just passive, you are hunting for the solution to a puzzle you just failed to solve. Constructing the system. So, how do you run this in the real world? You do not need complex software, though digital flashcard tools can help. You need a protocol. Every week, during your study blocks, you will create 20 new atomic questions. No more. If you try to memorize everything, you will memorize nothing. You must be ruthless. What are the 20 most critical concepts from this week's work? Tag these questions by their purpose. Is it an explain question, where you need to articulate a concept? Is it a solve question, where you need to fix a snippet of code or a math problem? Is it a choose question, where you need to select the right tool for a job? Schedule your reviews. Put them on your calendar. This is not optional homework. This is the maintenance of your engine. If you miss a review day, do not panic. Do not reset the deck. Just pick it up the next day. The system is resilient. And once a month, you must prune. As you grow, some questions will become too easy. They will feel like asking, what color is the sky? Delete them. Your knowledge base should not be a museum of everything you have ever encountered. It should be a gym for the skills you are currently building. Keep it lean. Keep it difficult. The precision of the close. To make your questions even more effective, use the close technique. This is a fancy word for fill in the blank. Instead of asking, what is the function of a variable, write, a variable is a container for storing blank values. This forces precision. Open-ended questions allow you to waffle. You can talk around the answer and convince yourself you know it. A fill-in-the-blank question has nowhere to hide. You either know the specific word or you don't. You can also use images. If you are learning anatomy, do not describe the location of a muscle. Show a diagram with the muscle blanked out and ask, "What is this?" If you are learning design, show a layout and ask, "What design principle is violated here?" Visual cues anchor memory in a different part of the brain, creating multiple hooks for the same information. The ultimate test. The goal of this system is not to get good at flashcards. The goal is to be dangerous in the real world. You want to be in a meeting or an interview or a crisis and have the answer appear in your mind instantly. To ensure this transfer happens, you must avoid the recognition illusion. When you look at the front of a card or the question you wrote, do not flip it over immediately. Do not say, "Oh, I know that." Force yourself to say the answer out loud or write it down. You must produce the artifact of the answer before you receive the feedback. If you flip the card and say, "Yeah, that's what I was thinking," you are lying to yourself. You are cheating the system. If you cannot explain it to a teenager, if you cannot articulate it simply and clearly without looking at your notes, you do not know it. Mark it as a fail. Reset the interval to 1 day. Start again. The engine is hum. If you follow this path, something remarkable will happen after about 6 weeks. You will stop feeling like you are constantly leaking information. You will start to feel a growing density in your mind. You will read a new concept and instantly connect it to 3 other things you learned a month ago. You will start to see patterns that were invisible to you before. You are no longer a tourist in the world of information. You are a resident. You are building a latticework of mental models that gets stronger with every review. You are turning time into equity. But there is a danger in this confidence. You can build a beautiful architecture. You can have a motivation engine that fires every day. You can work deeply. You can practice deliberately. You can remember everything you learn. But what if you are learning the wrong thing? What if you are getting incredibly efficient at a skill that doesn't actually matter? What if you are memorizing facts that are obsolete? What if you are practicing a technique that is fundamentally flawed and you are just cementing an error into your permanent memory? The system we have built so far is a closed loop. It is powerful, but it's blind. It assumes that your judgment is perfect. It assumes that you know what good looks like, but you are the student. By definition, you do not know what you do not know. We need to break the seal. We need to open the windows and let the cold air of reality blow through your system. We need to stop guessing and start navigating. We need to talk about the signals that tell you if you are actually moving forward or just spinning in circles. Chapter 7, Feedback Loops. You are the easiest person to fool. You can spend weeks in your room, reading books, highlighting passages, and feeling a warm glow of intellectual expansion. You can practice your guitar scales, write your code, or draft your novel, and in the safety of your isolation, you will convince yourself that you are brilliant. But you are flying blind. Without an external signal, your brain will default to ego protection. It will hide your mistakes. It will overestimate your competence. It will tell you that you are getting the hang of it, when in reality, you are cementing bad habits that will take months to undo. You are operating in a vacuum, and in a vacuum, there is no resistance to tell you if you are actually moving forward. We need to break the glass. We need to expose your work to the harsh light of reality. This is terrifying, and that is exactly why it works. We are going to install feedback loops. Most people view feedback as judgment. They think of it as a grade on a test or a performance review from a boss they dislike. They see it as a verdict on their worth. This is a childish view. In a high-performance system, feedback is not judgment, it is navigation. It is the GPS signal that tells you have drifted 3 degrees off course. If you get that signal early, the correction is a small turn of the wheel. If you ignore it, you end up on the wrong continent. The dashboard of truth. To navigate, you need instruments. You cannot manage what you do not measure. But if you measure the wrong things, you will optimize for the wrong behaviors. This is where most self-learners fail. They track vanity metrics. They track hours spent studying or pages read. These numbers make you feel industrious, but they tell you absolutely nothing about your skill. You need to track two specific types of data: lead indicators and lag indicators. Think of it like a sales funnel. A lag indicator is the result. It is the signed contract, the shipped product, or the job offer. It is the thing you want. But the problem with lag indicators is that they are historical. By the time you see them, the work is already done. You cannot influence them in the moment. Lead indicators are the behaviors that produce the result. They are predictive. In sales, this would be the number of calls made. In self-education, it is the number of deep work sessions completed, the number of drills run, or the number of atomic questions created. You need a dashboard that tracks 2 lead indicators and 1 lag indicator. For your leads, pick metrics that are entirely within your control. Complete 10 focus blocks is a good lead. Drill the hardest sub-skill 5 times is a good lead. You can wake up and decide to do these things. For your lag, pick the artifact, ship the weekly tutorial, publish the code. This is the output. When you track these side by side, you strip away the emotion. If your lag indicator is 0, you didn't ship, look at your leads. Did you do the work? If you did the work but didn't get the result, your strategy is wrong. If you didn't do the work, your execution is wrong. The numbers don't lie, and they don't care about your excuses. They just show you the mechanical truth of your week. The alchemy of errors. Once you have your dashboard, you need to change your relationship with failure. In the traditional school system, an error is a sin. It lowers your grade. It is something to be ashamed of. In the system of mastery, an error is the most valuable piece of data you can generate. An error is a specific coordinate that points to a gap in your mental model. It is a gold nugget wrapped in dirt. Most people, when they make a mistake during practice, feel a flash of annoyance and immediately try to forget it. They want to get back to the part where they feel smart. You must do the opposite. You must become an error hunter. You are going to maintain an error log. This is a simple document with 3 columns: the pattern, the cause, and the fix. When you fail a drill, or write buggy code, or stumble in a language practice, do not just move on. Stop. Write down what happened. That is the pattern. Then diagnose it. Why did it happen? Was it a lack of focus, a misunderstanding of the concept, a bad habit? That is the cause. Finally, write the fix. What specific drill will you run tomorrow to ensure this never happens again? This process converts failure into instruction. You are not just fixing the mistake, you are upgrading the system that produced the mistake. Over time, your error log becomes a customized textbook of your own weaknesses, and by addressing them one by one, you systematically eliminate the ways you can fail. The public crucible. Now we come to the part you will hate. You must show your work. You can track metrics and log errors in private, and that is good, but it is not enough. You need the pressure of an audience. When you know that someone else is going to see your work, your brain shifts gears. It pays attention to details it would otherwise ignore. It refuses to cut corners. You need to establish a weekly demo. This does not mean you need to broadcast to millions of people. It means you need to ship your artifact to someone. It could be a peer, a mentor, or a small community online. The size of the audience matters less than the existence of the audience. The goal of the demo is not to get praise. Praise is nice, but it is nutritionally empty. The goal is to get one actionable note. You want someone to look at your work and say, "This part is confusing," or "This logic doesn't hold up." That sting you feel when they critique your work, that is the ego dying. Let it die. That piece of feedback is worth more than 10 hours of solitary study because it shatters your delusions. It anchors your performance to external standards. It forces you to realize that what is clear in your head is not necessarily clear on the page. Defining done. One of the biggest sources of drift in self-education is the lack of a finish line. When are you good enough at a skill? Without a clear answer, you will dabble forever, never quite mastering the basics, but never moving on to advanced work. You need mastery criteria. For every skill you listed in your architecture, You need a binary threshold that defines competence. These criteria must be objective. Understand Excel is not a criterion. That is a feeling. Create a pivot table that sorts this specific dataset in under 60 seconds is a criterion. You either did it or you didn't. Set 2 thresholds for your core skills that you can test in 5 minutes. Can you explain the concept without using jargon? Can you execute the task without looking at the documentation? Can you troubleshoot the error without Googling it? When you meet the criteria, you move on. You stop practicing that skill and move it to maintenance mode, spaced repetition. This prevents the trap of over-polishing the things you are already good at while neglecting the things you suck at. It forces you to constantly push into new territory. The pre-mortem strategy. Feedback usually comes after the fact, but the smartest operators use feedback from the future. Before you start a big push or a complex project, run a pre-mortem. Assume it is 6 weeks from now, and you have failed. The project is a disaster. You didn't learn the skill. You didn't ship the artifact. Now ask yourself, why did it happen? Did you get distracted by a new video game? Did you get stuck on a technical hurdle and give up? Did you overcomplicate the plan? List the likely causes of your future failure. Then, create a countermeasure for each one right now. You are anticipating the feedback before the reality hits you. You are solving problems before they exist. This is how you rig the game in your favor. The trap of vanity. As you implement these loops, you will face a temptation. You will want to game the system. You will want to pick metrics that make you look good. You will want to choose an audience that only gives you compliments. You will want to set mastery criteria that are too easy. This is Goodhart's law in action. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. If your goal is to read 50 pages, you will skim 50 pages just to hit the number, retaining nothing. If your goal is no errors, you will pick easy drills where you never fail. You must guard against this with ruthless honesty. You are the scientist and the subject. If you cheat the data, you are only cheating your future self. The market does not care about your metrics, it cares about your competence. Keep your measures linked to hard artifacts and difficult behaviors. If the numbers are going up, but the work isn't getting better, the numbers are wrong. The pivot point. When you have fast loops, daily error logs, and slow loops, weekly demos, your trajectory changes. You stop moving in a straight line and start moving in a spiral. You circle the target, getting closer and closer with every iteration. You try, you fail, you analyze, you fix, you try again. This is the rhythm of mastery. It is not a smooth ascent, it is a jagged series of corrections. But because you are measuring, you are never lost. You always know exactly where you are and what you need to do next. You have built a machine that is capable of incredible things. You have the architecture to plan, the engine to start, the focus to work, the drills to improve, the memory to retain, and the feedback to correct. But there is one final piece missing. You are working in the system. You are the laborer, sweating over the drills and the logs. You are the pilot, gripping the controls and watching the instruments. But who is designing the plane? Who is deciding if this is even the right destination? Who is checking if the engine is efficient or if the wings are about to fall off? You are so busy executing the plan that you might have forgotten to ask if the plan is actually working. We need to step out of the cockpit. We need to take off the pilot's headset and put on the engineer's hard hat. We need to stop thinking about the work and start thinking about the thinking. It is time to go meta. Chapter 8, Metacognition. You are working hard. You have built the architecture. You have the motivation engine humming. You are waking up early, putting on the headphones, and diving into deep work. You are drilling your weak points and tracking your errors. By all accounts, you are doing everything right. You are the perfect employee of your own life. But there is a vacancy in the building. You have a diligent worker, that is you, sweating over the keyboard. You have a strict manager, that is your schedule and your alarm clock. But you are missing the CEO. You are missing the strategist who sits in the corner office, looks at the quarterly numbers, and asks the uncomfortable question, are we even building the right thing? It is possible to be efficient, but ineffective. It is possible to climb a ladder at record speed, only to realize when you get to the top that it is leaning against the wrong wall. You can execute a learning plan with military precision and still end up with a skill set that is obsolete, irrelevant, or misaligned with your actual goals. This happens because you are trapped inside the loop of doing. You are so busy chopping down trees that you never climb up to the canopy to see if you are in the right forest. To fix this, we need to install the final layer of your operating system. We need to introduce you to the art of thinking about thinking. The CEO of your own brain. This is where we leave the realm of tactics and enter the realm of strategy. The technical term for this is metacognition. It sounds academic, but it is actually the most practical tool in your arsenal. It is the ability to step outside of yourself, observe your own cognitive processes, and evaluate them as if they belong to someone else. Without this layer, you are a zombie executioner. You repeat mistakes because you never pause to analyze the root cause. You drift off course by a single degree, which feels like nothing today, but puts you on a different continent 3 months from now. You hoard drafts and half-finished projects because you lack the perspective to see their value. Metacognition is the antidote to drift. It is the feedback loop that governs all other feedback loops. It transforms your learning from a frantic sprint into a self-correcting system. It turns experience into insight and insight into principles. The weekly stand-up. The first ritual you must install is the weekly review. This is not a diary entry. It is not a time to vent about your feelings or write poetry about your struggles. It is a cold, hard look at the data. Schedule this for 20 minutes once a week. Sunday night or Monday morning works best. Treat it with the same reverence you would give a meeting with a high-stakes investor, because that is exactly what it is. You are the investor, and your time is the capital. During this review, you are going to answer 3 specific prompts. First, look for the wins. What actually worked this week? Did a specific drill unlock a new level of speed? Did a certain time of day yield better focus? You need to identify these bright spots so you can double down on them. Second, look for the snags. Where did the system break? Did you miss 3 sessions in a row? Why? Was it laziness or was the plan unrealistic? Did you get stuck on a technical concept for 4 hours? Why? Was the resource bad or were you distracted? Be ruthless here. You are not judging yourself, you are debugging the machine. Third, and most importantly, define the next moves. Based on the wins and the snags, what changes next week? Maybe you need to fire a resource that is too confusing. Maybe you need to move your deep work block to the morning. Maybe you need to lower the difficulty of your drills. This review must end with a decision. If you write down your thoughts but change nothing, you are just navel-gazing. Reflection without action is vanity. Every review must result in a mutation of the system. You are evolving your process week by week, stripping away what is useless and amplifying what is effective. The autopsy of performance. The weekly review handles the big picture, but you also need a tool for the immediate aftermath of a battle. In the military, they use the after-action review, or AAR. We will steal this. Whenever you finish a significant session, a complex coding sprint, a difficult writing block, a public demo, do not just walk away. Take 2 minutes to run a mental autopsy. Ask yourself 4 questions in rapid succession. What did I intend to do? What actually happened? Why was there a difference? What will I do differently next time? This sounds simple, but it is profound. Often, the gap between intent and reality is where the learning lives. You intended to write 1,000 words. You actually wrote 200. Why? I got distracted is a lazy answer. Dig deeper. I got distracted because I stopped to research a fact, fell down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, and lost my flow. Now you have an actionable insight. The fix isn't try harder. The fix is separate research from writing. Next time, you will use a placeholder for facts and keep writing. You have just converted a failure into a permanent upgrade to your workflow. Capture these insights in your error log. Over time, this log becomes a manual of your own psychology. You will start to see patterns. You will realize that you always overestimate how much you can do on Fridays. You will realize that you learn better from video than text, or vice versa. You are building a user manual for your own brain. The Museum of Competence. There is a myth that portfolios are only for artists and designers. People think that if they are learning finance or management or back-end engineering, they don't need a portfolio. They think a resume is enough. This is a fatal error. A resume is a claim. A portfolio is proof. Part of your metacognitive practice is the curation of evidence. You need to translate your effort into credibility. If you spend 12 weeks learning a skill and have nothing to show for it but a certificate of completion, you have failed. You need artifacts. Once a month, you should curate a portfolio of proofs. Look back at the work you shipped. Pick the single best artifact, the cleanest code, the sharpest analysis, the most compelling video. But do not just post the file. Contextualize it. Write a short 150-word case study. Describe the problem you were trying to solve. Describe the constraints you were working under. Describe the result. This exercise does two things. Externally, it creates a narrative that opens doors. When you can show a stranger not just what you did, but how you thought about it, you separate yourself from the 99% of people who just list skills on LinkedIn. Internally, it changes your identity. When you look at your own portfolio, you see a history of growth. You see the delta between where you were 3 months ago and where you are now. This destroys imposter syndrome. You cannot argue with the evidence of your own competence. The quarterly reset. Finally, we need to zoom out to the horizon. Every 12 weeks, you need to perform a quarterly reset. This is where you audit the entire architecture. You will have tactics that served you well in the beginning, but are now holding you back. Maybe you needed strict flashcards to learn the vocabulary, but now you need to be reading native texts. Maybe you needed to copy tutorials to understand the syntax, but now you need to build from scratch. You must create a kill list. Identify the tactics that no longer pay a return on investment and ruthlessly eliminate them. This frees up bandwidth for the next level of challenge. Then you pick your next 12-week outcome. You reset the clock. You build a new architecture for a new target. You are not just continuing, you are restarting at a higher level of difficulty. The trap of the perfectionist curator. As you implement this layer of thinking, you will encounter a specific kind of resistance. You will be tempted to hoard your drafts. You will look at your artifact and think, it's not ready. It's not good enough for the portfolio. I'll fix it next week. This is fear masquerading as quality control. You must ship version 0.7. You must be willing to iterate in public. A portfolio is not a museum of perfection. It is a documentation of progress. A rough prototype that exists is infinitely more valuable than a perfect idea that stays in your head. If you find yourself paralyzed by the quality of your proofs, ask a trusted peer for a single, specific piece of feedback. What is one thing that would make this 20% better? Do that one thing and then ship it. Do not polish the doorknob when the house is still being built. The feedback loop of life. When you integrate the weekly review, the AAR, and the portfolio, your learning stops being a series of isolated events. It becomes a living system. You observe your performance, you interpret the data, you decide on a change, you act on that decision. Observe, interpret, decide. This loop spins faster and faster. In the beginning, you are clumsy. You miss things. But soon, you start to anticipate the snags before they happen. You start to adjust your strategy in real time. You become adaptive. You stop being a person who is trying to learn. You become a learning machine. You can drop yourself into any domain, marketing, woodworking, astrophysics, and the system will take over. You will map the territory, build the drills, ship the proofs, and refine the process until mastery is inevitable. You have now assembled the complete vehicle. You have the map, architecture. You have the fuel, motivation. You have the engine, deep work. You have the transmission, practice. You have the storage, memory. You have the dashboard, feedback. And you have the driver, metacognition. You are capable of achieving more in the next 3 months than most people achieve in 3 years. You have the power to transform your curiosity into a weapon. But there is one final question we must answer. Right now, this system takes effort. It requires energy to run the reviews, to design the drills, to protect the time blocks. You are pushing the flywheel, and it is heavy. What happens when you want to go bigger? What happens when you want to learn faster, with less effort? What happens when you want to turn this manual process into something that compounds automatically, creating a life where opportunities chase you instead of you chasing them? We need to talk about how to take this linear system and make it exponential. We need to talk about the next horizon. Chapter 9, Next Horizon. You have reached the top of the first hill. You are standing there, perhaps a little out of breath, looking down at the path you just climbed. You can see the architecture you built, the deep work blocks you protected, and the artifacts you shipped. You have dirt under your fingernails and ink on your hands. You are tired, but it is a good kind of tired. It is the exhaustion of a builder who has finally raised the roof. But as you look up from your work, you notice something. The view has changed. From down in the valley of drift and distraction, the world looked static. It looked like a place where other people, smarter people, more talented people, did big things while you watched. But from up here, the landscape looks different. You can see further. You can see peaks in the distance that you didn't even know existed. This is the next horizon. The title of this chapter is not a destination. It is a promise. It is the realization that the system you have just installed is not a one-time fix for a specific problem. It is a perpetual motion machine. You have not just learned how to code or write or design. You have learned how to learn. You have acquired the master key that unlocks every other door in the world. The compound effect of competence. The most dangerous lie about self-education is that it always feels like the first week. People think that the struggle of the ramp-up, the confusion, the friction, the mental fog is the permanent state of learning. It is not. When you enter your second 12-week cycle, something miraculous happens. The friction drops. You don't have to waste energy deciding when to work because your blocks are already on the calendar. You don't have to fight your ego to start because your launch ritual is wired into your nervous system. You don't have to wonder if you are making progress because your feedback loops are already spinning. This is the law of compounding competence. The first cycle is about building the machine. The second cycle is about letting the machine run. You will find that you can achieve bigger outcomes with less effort. Your ramp-up time for a new skill shrinks from weeks to days. Your execution gets cleaner. Your focus gets deeper. You are no longer fighting the system. You are being carried by it. The chain that holds. Let's look at the chain you have forged. It is unbreakable if you keep the links intact. You started with direction. You stopped drifting and started designing. You realized that motion is not progress, and you built an architecture that serves your goals, not the algorithm's whims. You moved to identity. You stopped waiting for the lightning strike of motivation and built an engine that runs on autonomy. You decided who you are, a builder, and you let that identity drive your actions. You embraced depth. You rejected the shallow busyness of the modern world and carved out sanctuaries of focus. You learned that 1 hour of deep work is worth 10 hours of distracted multitasking. You adopted deliberate practice. You stopped mindlessly repeating what you already knew and started hunting for the friction. You found the bottleneck, designed the drill, and embraced the struggle. You built a memory system. You stopped treating your brain like a sieve and started treating it like a vault. You replaced rereading with retrieval, ensuring that what you learn stays with you when the pressure is on. You installed feedback loops. You stopped hiding from your errors and started using them as navigation. You shipped your work, faced the music, and used the data to correct your course. And finally, you applied metacognition. You stepped out of the cockpit to become the engineer, refining the system week by week. This chain is your lifeline. As long as it holds, you cannot stagnate, you can only ascend. The quiet power of predictability. The greatest gift this system gives you is not a specific skill, it is the removal of fear. Before, when you looked at a job description or a project that required skills you didn't have, you felt a pit in your stomach. You felt the gap between where you were and where you needed to be, and you had no idea how to cross it. You hoped you could learn it. You prayed for a breakthrough. Now, you look at that same gap and you feel calm. You don't hope, you plan. You know exactly how to break the skill down. You know how to schedule the blocks. You know how to drill the sub-skills. You know that in 12 weeks, that gap will be closed. This is the power of predictable skill acquisition. It turns the terrifying unknown into a solvable process. It gives you career optionality that no economic downturn can take away. A resume is a static document that lists what you used to do. A portfolio of proofs, built on a system of continuous learning, is a dynamic asset that shows what you are capable of doing next. Gravity and relationships. This transformation does not just happen inside your head, it bleeds out into the world. When you become a person who ships reliable work, who follows through on commitments, and who improves visibly week over week, people notice. You become a magnet. This is the concept of portfolio gravity. In the beginning, you have to chase opportunities. You have to send the cold emails and beg for the interviews. But as you stack your artifacts, as you publish your code, your writing, your designs, the dynamic flips. The opportunities start chasing you. People want to work with builders. They want to work with people who have a system. When you can explain complex ideas clearly because you have practiced retrieval, you become a better communicator. When you can fix errors quickly because you have shed your ego, you become a better collaborator. You raise the bar for everyone around you. The first step of the rest of your life. So what now? You might be tempted to take a break. You might feel like you have earned a rest. Do not do it. Momentum is a jealous lover. If you ignore it, it leaves. The most critical moment in your journey is not the day you started this book. It is today. It is the moment you finish it. You are standing at the threshold of your next cycle. The architecture is waiting. The blocks are empty. The horizon is wide open. You have a choice. You can close this book, nod your head, and go back to your old life. You can let the drift creep back in. You can let the boredom return. You can let the potential you have unlocked slowly suffocate under the weight of passive consumption. Or you can move. The final challenge. Here is your instruction. It is not a suggestion. Put this book down. Open your calendar. Choose your next 12-week outcome. Write it down. Make it specific. Make it scary. Pick your flagship artifact. What will you hold in your hands 3 months from now that proves you did the work? Schedule your first block for tomorrow morning, not Monday, tomorrow. Announce a demo date. Tell a friend. Tell the internet. Create the pressure that turns coal into diamonds. Your future self is watching you right now. They are waiting to see if you are going to give them the gift of a new life, or if you are going to hand them the same old regrets. They are begging you to start. The timer is at 0, the slate is clean, the system is ready. The next rep decides the story. Are you going to build it